Hello everyone, welcome to Rise's first design-oriented event. We're super excited about it, so hope you are as well. We're joined by three experts in the industry. For now, we're waiting on Aditi, but we can do Niklank's and Arun's introduction. So Nikalank works as the Vice President of Product Design at Vodafone. I think he started his career as a graphic designer, proceeded to be an art director, and is now the Vice President of Product Design at Vodafone. Arun Chetty is the director of design at Razorpay. I think he was a founding member, and he was the first product designer who went to product lead, design manager, and now director. And he has scaled the design team with Razorpay's growth. So he's very aware of how to scale a design organization within the company. So yeah, thank you so much for joining. Just a little bit of introduction about our founders. So they're an eager and enthusiastic bunch of people who have launched their products or in their early stages of launching. So yeah, since everyone is acquainted with each other, we can get started. Hey Aditi.
Hey, hi folks.
Hey.
Extremely sorry I'm late
No
today.
problem. So, this is the third panelist. Her name is Aditi, and she's currently the Senior Director of Delivery. So, these are the three panelists that we have for today's discussion, which centers around design and its role in early stage startups. How we're going to go about this is in the beginning, I'll ask a certain amount of questions which will be directed towards the three of you. We'll direct it first at somebody, and then eventually the second and the third person can take it forward, piggyback on, or contradict as well. After which, we will open the floor to everyone in the audience. And meanwhile, you can drop your messages on the chat. We will be able to pick it up, let's say, in about 20-25 minutes. For now, we can get started with the questions that we have. So the first question is around why design is important in an early stage startup. This is a question that a lot of our founders do have. And if you can give us insights into what edge it will provide if you invest in design from the beginning, then that would be helpful. So let's start first with Niklankh, and then we can take it forward.
Putting me in the spot there. Um, okay, so interesting question. Why is design important in an early stage startup? So it actually depends on how you define design for an early stage startup, right? Now, being somebody who's run a startup myself, while I was the only designer in my own company, I can tell you that so pixel perfect design is not important for, at least this is my view, pixel perfect design is not important for an early stage startup, right? What is important is being able to put an experience together, like a minimum viable product together, right, with minimum friction and expenses, right, and being able to understand that is very, very important for an early stage startup. So at that stage of your company, your design has to work with your tech and has to work with your business more than it has to work within itself, right? And I can't emphasize this enough, because value for money, it's an existential exercise at that point in my mind. So it's very important that you understand what you're spending on, and bad design can be very expensive, more expensive than good design, to be honest, right? It's very important that how do you define design for yourself at that stage will define how much money you spend and what you can get out of it in the long run.
Makes sense. Arun, if you are willing to take a stab at this, having been
Yeah,
a founding member in a company.
yeah, sure. I think super plus one to what Nikalank has said, right? Uh, to just take a look at how the history has been in terms of startup growth as well. We see a good 100 to 200 startups getting registered almost every month, but rarely we see that number of startups actually growing into huge domain leaders, or let's say unicorns for that matter, right? Like if let's say if that is a criteria of sorts, right?
Yeah.
So there's something that these startups who are not making it doing wrong, and I fundamentally believe that is experience, as rightly said by Nikalank. And it's not just about what you see on the screens, right? That's why I'm not using the term user experience or interface design. I'm just using the term in general experience, right? And all of us, every one of us, use a certain product because it solves something for us, right?
Yeah.
We use Airbnb because it solves living not somewhere outside for us as easily as it can get, right? So understanding that set of needs is absolutely important. And who better than designers to, get that understanding to the table, right? So I very strongly believe that design actually should be one of the first functions to be set up at an early stage startup. Forget the debate on why is it important, right? I'm in fact extending it further and saying that you should probably be looking at hiring designers, in your day zero itself.
Makes sense, which is what happened as well. Aditi, anything to add to this?
As a failed entrepreneur, I can sort of attest to that. Yes. Okay. So this is, and I know I'll probably get, you'll all probably come up with pitchforks after me, but I feel I have to say this. Look, and it's sort of extending what Nikalank said when he said that you don't need pixel perfect design on day one. As designers, we tend to make done, perfect the enemy of done.
Yeah.
Starting, you're looking at growth, hopefully at profitable growth. That does not, unfortunately, always, one can debate that, yes, okay, that's perhaps not right. And what is the actual value proposition that you're creating for your user? And therefore, how does it feed into your user experience? Because the idea that user experience somehow is divorced from business goals is silly.
Yeah.
If there isn't a user, there is not going to be a business, and vice versa. If you don't have a user, you won't have very good business, right? So, I mean, so at the very early stage of things, I think when you come into a minimum viable product, it helps to have a reasonably clear visualization of your as is state, and a reasonably clear visualization also. Actually, your as is should be as clear as possible, right? And what can still suffer from about 20 to 30% ambiguity and fuzziness, which you need to get comfortable with, is your should be state of the business. The idea, and good startups manage to do this, is that they manage to figure out that their rate of growth, right, needs to constantly be as much or exceed the rate at which it takes to engineer from as is to should be, or reverse engineer from should be to as is, however the case may be. And people tend to take those routes. So I think that is essentially the mindset with which you should approach design, even at an early stage. And definitely do not make perfect the enemy of done. Don't do that. Don't do that. For an early stage startup, that's just expensive. And like I said, this is coming from someone who's failed spectacularly at running her own show. So that's my 2 cents at it.
Thank you for that. And we will keep that in mind. But this is actually a perfect segue into my next question, which is, when is the best time to consider hiring design?
I'd still stick to day zero. Someone who's been there, done that, I'd still stick to day zero. But
I don't disagree at all.
Yeah.
It's that you have to, at that point, I mean, what I was simply trying to say earlier was that at that point, you just seem to have to make a choice. You are inherently, if you're a founding member as well as a designer and a design founding member of a certain team, well, you are inherently going to wear 2 hats. You have to figure out exactly where it is that you're going to say that, all right, I will not obsess over the perfection of this, but I need to absolutely, let's say at this point, get into a higher gear as an entrepreneur and say that this is what I need to push right now, while not losing sight of what you really want your product or your experience to look like eventually. Like,
I just want to.
is really valuable.
Yeah, a huge plus one to that. And this is something that we see common across all creative functions, where I'm gonna sit in a silo, make the best possible version. Nikalank also mentioned this in the starting, right? It just kills your gains.
Yeah, because that's not the hour, right? I mean, you have one thing. I think more than focusing on when should you hire a designer, or rather, what I would say is that you should focus on what kind of designer you're hiring, right? I mean, there are different types of designers, and you hire the wrong kind of designer, and they'll ruin you, right? So, and
is it just me?
No, I think there's some internet issues.
So,
Yeah,
hey,
sorry,
can you
we
guys hear me?
lost you
Hello?
for a minute. Yeah,
Hey,
you were
can you guys
talking
hear
about.
me?
Yeah, we can hear you now.
Hello.
Yeah. Are we audible?
Yeah, I think my AirPods ran out. Am I audible? Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, no, what I was saying was, I think knowing the types of designers is very important, right? I mean, you hire the wrong kind of designer and, they're going to drive you into your grave, right? And I'm saying this being a designer myself, right? So the thing is, I mean, you want more practical, more honest guys up front in the beginning, right? So they're more the problem solving, hat kind of people. They may not be very, very good with your design tools and, your design software, and they might not be getting you the pixel perfect things, but they know enough for you to be able to, so, and you can trust them enough with your business and your, monies, right? So that's, I think, more important. And then at some sort of a tipping point, I mean, and that you will realize on your own as a founder and as a person who owns a business, that you will start need to hiring more expertise, right? That's when the expertise starts splitting into UI, UX, design research and analytics and all of those things. So you hire a pixel perfectionist, designer in the beginning, and you're done, right? Because everything will be like, oh, this is not going to work, or that's not between the design and the tech battle, and it'll drive you up the wall because you won't be able to focus on your business. Because as a founder, your focus is business. It's about making sure that you have something valuable you're creating for the user or your customer, right? Yeah, I mean, so there are two aspects to this that I always do in my the user is a smaller, right? Then the lines are kind of blurred and you're almost the same. So I think understanding these things is also very important. And, the kind of because please hire somebody who can be brutally honest with you, right? I think honesty as a trait of a designer is the most important thing. If you are not going to let the designer be honest with you, not going to work, right? People your best friends, your relatives make the worst design consultants. I mean, at least that's been my experience, to be honest, right? Because I've lost a lot of friends and relatives because I've been an honest designer to them. So yeah, just putting it out there.
I think it goes two ways, right? As founders, we all should first of all give that seat at the table, as generally the industry calls it, to designers. And also as designers, we should be ready to take that seat, right?
Yeah.
I like there's a mismatch generally is what I see on both the sides, where like I do see like fair split of founders who treat designers transactional, where the when part of the question generally comes from a need. Oh, I need something in the short term. I need a designer. It's not about, what, I'm fundamentally solving a problem and a designer will add value over there, right?
Yeah,
so
yeah.
two sets of founders over there. And similarly, on the other side, I see two kinds of designers. One who thinks that nothing is someone else's problem. I need to take it up, right? Doesn't matter if it is my domain. Doesn't matter if it is, it's my competency or not. I'll figure something out, right? And that's absolutely important at an early stage. And I see the other spectrum also, where what, I'm best at this. I'm going to do just this. Can someone else figure something out? Right? So that mismatch is where generally people go wrong. Generally orgs go wrong. And when the match happens, it's just a match made in heaven, right? It just works absolutely smooth.
Another thing, don't hire designers through investors. They have a very, very different understanding of designers. Investors will tell you, oh, I know this great designer, he's going to help you. But that great designer is going to be so expensive or so, disconnected or not interested in what you're doing that it's going to hurt, right? Meet professionals in the field, right? Get opinions from them, like somebody who solved a similar problem, right? And I'm telling you, the good ones will be more than happy to help.
So, how you mentioned that investors will probably try to find a really expensive designer to join the team. So, as a founder, how should you make your first design hire? What is the pitch that you should give to a designer to find the right type of designer for that phase in your journey?
You want to take that first, Arun?
Yeah. Arun can take it first.
No, I'd actually like to, hear Aditi's answer because she herself was an entrepreneur and a designer, right? I want to know your side of the story.
Hire the critical thinkers first.
Plus one to that, yeah.
Yep.
Get critical thinkers first. I mean, you definitely need the specialists. There is absolutely no debate over there, but that will only come from a certain degree of horizontality. After your organization, your scale comes to that point. There's no taking away that specialists are specialists because they have that sort of niche understanding of that domain. But you need your critical thinkers and your generalists first.
I think founders.
Totally agree with what Nikalank is saying. Don't work with your friends. It's a little difficult for them to lie to you and for you to lie to them, and it just all turns out very poorly for everyone.
I think the criteria remains the same way, where just like the way you would hire your first employee, doesn't matter if that person is a designer or a marketer or an engineer. I think the same logic applies to the first of every domain, because you're not hiring that person to do one job, right? You're hiring that person.
The first employee is always going to be a hustler.
Yes, wearing multiple hats,
It does
always
not
available.
matter whether or not he is the sharpest tool in the shed, but the first guy you need on your side, which is what I did also, is someone who is willing to do anything.
Yes.
At that point.
Yeah.
A critical thinker, I think, would still be 1 or 2 degrees removed from that, because that guy would know that, all right, I have to get a whole lot of shit done on ground, but it is also my job to take a pause and gain perspective on what's going on. I need to have the ability to zoom in and zoom out. So yes, you need a guy who is willing to hustle, but also willing to think critically.
Yeah. So
but
one more thing that I just want to add.
I mean, going to your previous question, sorry, but going to
No, sorry. Go ahead.
Arun, first employee was someone who was willing to do all of it.
Yeah.
Run between sites, run to different places to source stuff, help with drawings, the whole hog.
Exactly right. Like you should expect a lot of non-design work from a designer, especially the first designer.
Yeah. Now, I just want to add one more point to this. I mean, I think another way or another screener, at least that's what I've seen work in the interactions that I've had. They have to believe in your problem statement.
Yeah.
Right. There has to be some connection. I'm not saying that they have to be married to it, and I'm not saying that but if they don't have that, or if they don't know where to look for similarities, like for example, one of the things that I keep doing in my organization right now is that I'm not fighting the Airtels and Geos, right? I'm fighting the Amazons and Flipkarts and Razorpays, and those are the guys I'm trying to be better than. Right? Me pegging myself to a Geo and Airtel is me spiraling inwards. Right? If I have to grow outwards, I mean, so you need, like critical thinker, that's one of the things that, even Aditi mentioned, that you need somebody who knows where to go, or who's willing to kind of, knock on any door, open any box and look at if there's inspiration there, if there's something there, right? I mean, and, that's the kind of person. So this, like I said earlier also, they may not have design skills, quote unquote, like, the tools and stuff like that. And if they can help you solve your issues, I think the design part becomes a lot easy anyway, right? The aesthetics and the experience side of things, they start becoming a lot easier if you've got your critical thinking right, if you know who you're fighting, if you know who you're and I think design can really, really help you there, right? Who are you competing against? A lot of people tend to think that they're competing with the people in their industry. Your user is not thinking like that. Right? Your user, when they open Uber or they open WhatsApp, they're not thinking that, oh, Telegram is like this, so WhatsApp is like this. So then they're just like, my God, why can't I do this? It's like that. Or why are they not saying this to me? Or why, so you need somebody who can do that to you. And that doesn't happen if they're not connected with your statement. That can't happen if they're just working for a paycheck. It doesn't work.
So adding to that question, if everyone over here has been in a founder mind space and has started their own company per se, so what is the best pitch to give to find the right designer that you just spoke about? A critical thinker, someone who's a hustler, someone who'll be able to step out of a designer role and also wear multiple hats?
I have a slightly different take here, right? Like,
Sure.
if a very strong pitch is required, maybe that creative hustler is not actually interested in your domain.
I completely agree, man. I completely agree. If
If
you're
you need to go out there and sell this statement so much, then you're barking up the wrong tree to begin with.
yeah.
I do know generally what questions come in, when early stage founders go out and find designers. One of the primary things that designers come back, especially in their early careers, is where do I get mentorship from? Like, how do I grow in the organization? Right? As long as you as a founder are able to, not like draw path to say that here is how you grow, but at least give a direction saying that here is where this can grow in the future, right? I think that should be good enough of a pitch. But
see, you have to essentially find someone who has a bit of a death wish with you. Na?
yeah.
Right? That this will either be absolutely massive or it is going to go bust like tomorrow.
Yeah.
Are you prepared to deal with that level of discomfort to begin with?
Yeah, it's
What-
as bold as it can get.
Yeah, what stage you're at will define the way you will look for a designer.
Correct.
Right. I mean, you won't possibly do this when you're established, or when you've got the product market fit and things like that. You've got money to burn. Then if you're going to do this, then you're stupid. Then you will get the wrong kind of designer, right?
Right.
In the big,
how you got there to begin with.
huh?
I'd like to question the sheer damn luck that brought you there to begin with.
It happens, dude. I've seen it happen, right? I mean,
I will question the sheer damn luck. I don't doubt it.
Yeah.
For a minute, it's real. But I'd
Yeah.
like to know, I'd be curious. How did this happen?
But so I'll tell you what I would do, or what I've done is I really try and understand what motivates the person I'm talking to. Right. So in your first few, people who you're looking for, whether it's design, whether it's technology, whether it's, whatever kind of person you're looking for when you're trying to build that, first set of people, it really depends on what's motivating you, right? What is it that's going to keep you coming, to work every morning? And, are you going to be able to challenge me in what I'm trying to do, or is it that you're just going to support me in what I'm going to do? Because then the onus to succeed and to be able to add value is all on me. Right. And you don't want that. What you want is somebody who you can grow with. So it's not just about how you would grow the person who's coming to you, but can you grow with them? Do you really see something? You're sharing a dream, man. When you're a founder in the early stages and all that, there's this big vision that you have. There is this, world dominance that's going on in your head. Now, when you want, if you're choosing people who you want to share that with, you need to be able to trust them with it, and they need to be able to believe in you and things like that. So what is motivating? So the kind of things that I'll tell you, like, make it a little more transactional so that, it makes sense, and it's not very altruistic as a conversation. What motivates you within your field, right? Where do you look for inspiration? Are you following the people who are, defining your domain, right? Are you following companies? So what are the companies that you look to? What are the kind of things, that what motivates you generally in life? What is the kind of, personality type that you are? Are you curious? Are you doing crazy things? Are you traveling? Things like that, that, because for a right brain talent or a mid brain talent, I think some of these things have to kind of, be there, then, what is your journey been like? Right. So these are the kind of questions that kind of help you, at least in my mind, unravel the person you're going to be sharing a lot with, right? And that is, I think, important. And so what motivates that person? Because believe me, if I have to motivate my core team, I'm done. Right? You have to feed off each other's energies. Right? While I should be able to do what I'm really good at, and that should excite the others, and they should be able to do what they're really good at, and that should excite me. As a founding team, as a first team, I think those would be the kind of things that would be very, very important.
And I mean, I noticed someone had written in the chat, someone who can empathize with your end user. Well, that's a brilliant place to start, sure. But what you also need to understand is that you have to have also people who are comfortable with a certain level of chaos and ambiguity. If you're going to have extremely straight-laced people who have exactly one motivation in life, well, that I respect that. I respect the hell out of that. Having single-minded focus and drive, it's not an attribute I have, and I reasonably admire it every time I see it. But being comfortable with chaos and ambiguity is not something you'll find with people every day, because it's possible. I mean, yeah, okay, we can reasonably romanticize this startup situation and say that, yeah, okay, it's a dream that you have. But frankly, as your dream grows bigger, you might realize that this could lead to something that you hadn't even dreamt of. You
Yeah.
need to be flexible enough to pivot. So the people that you have entrusted, like the first circle of hires that you entrusted to help you grow this, need to be comfortable with that, volatility, with that ambiguity as well,
Yeah.
and flexible enough to see you through while you do that.
100%.
Yeah.
That's what, right? Like founders hire a first person from a function to be redundant in that function, right? Like if I, as a founder, if I'm hiring one of my first marketeer, I personally don't want to get into marketing and solve it. I might want to give a direction, but I don't want to solve it myself because I'm hiring one of the best up there, right? And the best definition over here is what we all spoke till now. Someone who's a hustler, someone who's happy with the chaos, someone who can figure out their own things, someone who can come with the same, competency and add up to that domain.
That makes sense. Another question that I think a lot of founders may have is you have your first designer, things are going well, your company is scaling. How are you to scale your design team according to your company's growth? And what are the right steps for it to be a compact, lean, but a fruitful design team?
So there's no textbook answer to this.
I think
But there is
everyone
a
will
pattern
have
for sure.
everyone will have a different take
Yeah,
on it. So I
yeah,
think
but there is a pattern
yeah.
for sure. Because what I've seen, especially at Razorpay, they're just spikes and tops, right? Like there's three major functions, I'd say: engineering, product, and design, right? At any given point, one of them is facing a bandwidth crunch because the other overhired. There are way too many engineers. Now you need way too many designers. Now there are way too many designers. You need way too many product managers, right? So there is no textbook logic to as to how should you scale the team. But I've personally seen two kinds of scale happen. One, when there is a requirement, and one, who preempt that requirement, right? Someone who knows that, what, I'm going to start a completely new demography out there, a completely new product out there. And I need expertise, in a different competency, or I need more hands on the table, or I need more people thinking about it. If you're able to preempt that, well and good. If not, you try to cut corners by the end of it, because design, even after almost like 15 years, is a very smaller community compared to engineering, right? For every 10 engineers, you would see not more than 2 or 3 designers, because design itself has a proper concept for startups in India started max 12 or 15 years ago, right? It's not
Two or three for 10 is like huge.
exactly. It's even lesser. Like
I don't think you'd see one for 15, man. Yeah.
yeah, right. So the moment you are the second type,
In traditional industries, it's non-existent.
it is non-existent for sure.
Traditional businesses, it's non-existent. So
It's
startups,
a requirement based.
startups that go the traditional businesses way are like, old school sort of businesses way won't even have that.
Correct. So the second kind of methodology fails over here, where, okay, I'll see when a requirement comes in. So this is where, if the founders and let's say the team has a mentality that design is that garnish that you do in the end, right? If that is the mentality, then you would wait for that requirement to come and you'll fail hiring. But for someone who knows that design is something that you actually bake it in the start, right? Those folks can preempt, when do we need to scale the team up, and how do we need to scale up? What level of speciality do we need in the team? Do we need a speciality right now or not? And all the bells and whistles about what should be the structure, how should be the process, all of that follow.
Yeah.
I think I agree with Arun over here. Someone who's able to recognize what competencies you've built. Second, someone who's able to actually, because they've built those core competencies with you, they are able to preempt any lateral shifts that might happen over there. And from which, of course, comes the origin of the adjacencies. Let's say a new product. It's not something you're going to build a brand new competency for. If that's what you're doing, then that's a different ballgame altogether. Then you definitely need someone from in the design phase over there from the get-go. So the requirement is there. For example, in my experience, I've seen, when you are when it becomes more horizontal and going into adjacencies, there are times you reuse someone's skills also. I mean, I could pick up someone from an engineering background and groom them for a little while, as I have done, even in my team right now. Groom them to a certain extent to understand the basic core skills that are needed, things like quantitative research. I mean, I think engineers are fantastic at that. And designers have only recently gotten a little bit more comfortable with the idea of hybrid methodologies, qualitative and quantitative sort of decision intelligence being made to begin with. That is something very, very new. So if you are able to recycle someone's skills, right, you are not only giving them a new set of core skills altogether, which is going to be design thinking skills and lateral thinking skills, but you're also sort of looking at someone who brings a completely different set of competencies to the table as compared to you. I mean, if design is to commit to, many sort of variations and iterations of the final solution, then to begin with, as a designer, you need to be able to commit to iterating your own core skill set and not say that, hey, Excel confuses me and numbers are like Greek and Latin, so I will leave that to someone else. I will not look at it and I will sort of harp around everything that's qualitative. Coming back to what I originally said, that somehow divorcing user experience from business goals is just not the kind of designer that you're ever going to have to look for. Right
Yeah.
on.
I mean, so I just want to add to what Arun and Aditi has said. Something that's worked with in my experiences, and I compare this to working out the physical body, right? You scale when it hurts, right? A couple of caveats to that, right? So you need somebody sensible that they don't wait till it kills you, right? And at the same time, for you to be able to scale when it's needed, you need to have a pulse in the community. So you need to always be looking for talent, right? You may not want to get them on board immediately, but you need to stay connected. You need your network to be there so that, because don't ever hire in a hurry, right? Any and I'm not saying this for design talent, I'm talking about any freaking talent, whether it's engineering, product design, business, analytics. If you're hiring in a hurry, you are going to hurt yourself. There's no such thing as acha abhi le lete hain, then we'll figure out what to do and things like that. It doesn't work. I mean, at least it's never worked for me. Maybe I've just been unlucky, right? So couple of these two caveats, right? I mean, always keep a pulse into the community. Make sure that if you can't do it, somebody is doing it for you. You're connected to somebody who can help you kind of do this. Second thing is you have somebody who can tell you that, okay, listen, it's going to start hurting, right? This is going to start, not working in like 6 weeks, 8 weeks, or at this particular scale, things are going to start falling apart, so give yourself, and I would say, I mean, ideal dream is like 3 to 4 months, and you're golden. I think you'll definitely find somebody the other, but you should try and give yourself time, right? Otherwise you're just banking on lady luck, that I'm going to need one tomorrow and I'm going to get one day after tomorrow. So those couple of things I would say that definitely keep in mind.
For sure. So I think we have some questions in the chat which are follow-up questions to things that were mentioned earlier. So we can open up the floor to the audience. Aditi, could you help me?
Yes, absolutely. I think amazing insights, Arun, Nikalank, and Aditi. Really loved the answer. And I think the discussion was so engaging. Anyone who has any questions, feel free to unmute. I believe, Tanay, you asked something, and Aditi definitely went about answering it. But feel free to unmute yourself and share any follow-up perspectives you have, or anybody else who has questions, please raise your hand, and Avisha would be able to take that forward.
There's one question from Tanay, which isn't answered yet. Where do you find such hustlers? Not sure, Tanay. If this was a published book, I'd love to read it.
That's as curved as a curveball gets.
Yeah.
God knows where you can find such people, but it so happens that you do find them.
Yeah. So there's no textbook step 1, step 2, step 3 to find them. The tips that we've already discussed kind of work out the best, where Nikalank just said that hiring someone just for the sake of it immediately doesn't make sense. Take your time and not rush into it. And I've seen some interesting methodologies though. Like earlier, Zomato used to do this. They used to have like a work with me for a week, and we'll figure out synergies. That seem to have worked out for them. I've seen a lot of early stage founders also work with interns or contractors, but again, I have like mixed thoughts about it. Like in some cases, I'm like, if someone's a contractor, they might not be as involved as you are. But again, on the other side of it, if someone's a contractor, you're experiencing their work, their culture, etc., and then kind of going ahead. So there's no set answer to that, though.
Can I ask a follow-up question there?
Yeah,
sure.
Please do.
So as we all know that a founder is always hiring, right? So there are times when people themselves come and say that I want to take up this role in your organization, and also sometimes I feel ki I should rather give the opportunity there itself without even screening, just because of the energy they are coming with and the initiative that they have taken. So is this okay, or shall I like look for more people who would be much more caliber?
I think when we're talking about hustlers, I somehow think that we are over amplifying the quality of energy, right? It is
Yeah.
not just about energy. Like I can come onto your startup right now with the best maximum energy possible, but I might not be like a great addition coming from an impact standpoint, right? You should also look at that. As in, yeah, fair enough. I'm like one of the most enthusiastic designers out there. But if I'm not able to understand anything, or if I'm not able to solve for anything, I'm as good as a table at your office, right? I'm doing nothing.
A good looking table. Right?
Good
Yeah.
looking table. Yeah.
No, so I mean, I also just want to change something that in your statement. I wouldn't hire somebody if they wanted to come and play a particular role with me.
Yeah.
I would definitely hire somebody if they wanted to solve a particular problem with me.
Yeah.
Right. So if somebody says, I want to come and be a designer with you, thank you very much. But hey, listen, I can add value, or, if this is what you're doing, have you considered this? If they're trying to solve the problem with you, right? That's the kind of person that I would much rather spend a lot more time with than a particular person who's on a particular path, because that may not be your path, and people who are on a path seldom can bring value to people who are not on their path. I don't know if that makes sense, but it's like if I'm going down a particular road, I want to be a designer and then lead designer, and then I want to be a VP of design, and then I want to be whatever. If that's my track, or if I want to do a particular kind of design, then there's only that much value that they can add to you. Right? But if they're willing to go across, right, and say that, hey, listen, this part of your problem, I'll get it done. Whether it's me or not, I don't know. Right? I'll find you the right guy. Oftentimes, I'm telling you, people who, problem solving, critical thinking skills, that's a better designer for me than somebody who knows Photoshop or Illustrator or Figma or, any 3D design tool or anything like that.
Okay, thank you.
I mean, just to add to what Nikalank said, Tanya's question, even if people do come up to you and say that this is what I want to do, company, regardless of whether or not they might have the educational qualifications for it, if they are able to articulate what part of the problem they want to solve, and they have as much belief in the desired outcome of that solution as you do,
Yeah.
you hire them, no questions asked. You hire them, no questions asked, because it doesn't matter how they'll get it done. Because if they've identified that that is the actual problem to solve, therein lies your first indicator that this person's a brilliant critical thinker. They've managed to define the problem well. Plus 100 for that. Please come work with me tomorrow.
Got it. Thank you.
Thanks, Aditi, Nikalank. So, Avisha, before you move forward with Utkarsh's question, as we do in every event, I'll just share a quick poll with all of you on the screen and definitely vote how the session has been going for you. You can choose to answer this anonymously, and the speakers can excuse themselves, of course, for answering this poll. Over to you, Avisha, Utkarsh, whoever wants to follow. Yeah.
Utkarsh, I think you have a question, please.
Yep, I do. Thank you so much, guys. It's been a very, very informative session so far. I'm going to pull things back and make it a bit more pragmatic, right? More relatable to our situation. So just to set the context, what we are building essentially at Cashvisory is a robo-advisory platform. Our main objective is to kind of add gamification into personal financial planning, right? So gamification has happened in a lot of areas, but not in financial planning per se, right? So that's essentially what we're trying to do, and design and UI UX is extremely important for us. In fact, it's one of the most critical things. But the challenge that we're facing is that so is engineering, so is marketing, right? So resources are extremely limited, but everything seems important, right? So what we did, one of the things that Arun mentioned is you've seen startups working with sort of say freelancers or even agencies. So what we did initially is, because me and my co-founder Arpita, we don't come from any kind of design background, right? So no software experience, no UI UX experience in that sense. So we worked with someone to give us that template. So they were absolutely shit, to be very honest, right? They were terrible, but we got them to give us some sort of a template that is usable and then we evolved that template. And now what we do is we actually picked up Adobe XD ourselves. So now we have the color scheme, we have the template in place, and we use that ourselves because we have the customer inside. We know how a customer might potentially interact with the software. So we use that design language to now build out the solution ourselves, and that's how we've been doing it, right? So do you think this is the right approach? What could be some of the pitfalls we might be facing with this approach, and what could we do better in this situation?
Before I answer this one question, right? You were mentioning about gamification. It's as complicated of an engineering problem statement as it is a design. Actually, the other way around.
Absolutely.
Is as complicated as a design problem as it is on the engineering side, right? I'm guessing you and your co-founders solved for it and not the agency.
Yeah, you can say that.
So
You can definitely say that. So in fact, we gave them a wireframe, and even with the wireframe, they actually did not do a very good job with it. With a lot of guidance, at least they had a sensibilities of the visualization of things. So we got them to give us something that was usable on that front. And at the end, we used that and then did everything else ourselves. So you're right on that.
Sorry, when you say they didn't do a good job of it, what is the measure of success there? Was
Okay,
that a
great
conversion you
point.
were looking at?
Yeah,
Or
no,
was
so
it opinion?
so there's opinion is a huge component of it, but it wasn't the reason why our certainty and conviction was high that the design was bad was because even compared to existing solutions out there, it was nowhere close, right? It was extremely so to say, if I were to use the word, it was very rudimentary, right? Even things that a very ordinary basic website has right now, it didn't have, right? So we had to both in terms of the UI, in terms of the UX, in terms of thinking with where to place CTA buttons, how much focus to put on CTA buttons, how the user is going to navigate with the page. So even those kind of basics were not taken care of, right? Which we had to go in and actually help them, sit with them, and actually get it done. So yeah.
Sorry, just just a question. Was this agency very cheap?
You can say they were
And I'll tell you
they
why
were
I'm asking this. I'll
mid-range.
tell you
Yeah.
very honestly. Yeah, because there are lots of people masquerading as design agencies, with very bare minimum skills, and they're going at throwaway prices. I mean, I think this happens in every industry anyway, right? I mean, so
Right.
unfortunately, at least in this country, getting good people is either fortune or money.
Right. Right.
In this field, I mean, there's a certain amount of, or you'll have to spend time. Like, it's one of
Yeah.
those things, right? You have to spend time looking for someone, right? Or you'll have to be really lucky to get someone, or you'll have to spend a decent amount of money. So that might be one of the reasons why you got somebody who was so off base.
Right. So
Otherwise, what
Nikalank,
you're saying is like basics of design. So
yeah. So we actually did a very thorough post-mortem, right? Because we didn't want to have a similar experience in the future moving forward. So what we realized is that it wasn't an experience of them not being good at design or them being one of those masquerading agencies that you were talking about, but it's just that they didn't have the domain expertise, right? So let's say they're really good at F&B, right? Or they might be really good at something that's related to some putting up some sort of a show, right? But they might not be good at something that's more nuanced, right? So I think that was the gap in our case with the agency.
it's also the type of design that you're looking at. I mean, all the skills that you're looking at. I mean, sure.
Yeah.
Can
if
understand.
I may, did these guys spend enough time with you? Because see, sometimes it's not just about having done a certain sort of thing. Design, if you're
Yeah.
designer, and I think it's fair to say on this forum, pretty much at all levels, the kind of people we're talking about is people who are good at the process of
Right.
Yeah.
not specifically, certain domains. Right.
Yeah.
But the most important thing over here to understand is, were they as invested in your vision, or were they just there to like do the garnish, like Arun said earlier? Did they actually spend enough time understanding your business and where engagement is actually needed from your user? Because therein could lie your problem. Someone to begin with who is not invested enough in developing their own brief won't really be able to do a very good job of it.
True that. Yeah, that could have been a potential point. So we actually engaged them even before any of our development started, right? So at a very, very early stage, and we did want to give them as much information as they would have needed. But it could have been a situation where they did not ask enough questions or the right questions. So yeah, potentially that could be one of the reasons. Agreed with that. But so now this agency part is fine. Now let's say the current mode that we are working with, and with limited budgets, and definitely we don't have a budget to hire a designer at this stage, because we need to focus on those that budget into the engineering and the marketing resource, right? That's what we feel, because we are handling the design part ourselves. So is that approach completely wrong? Are we completely off, or is there some sort of a hybrid approach that we could take here?
I don't see any mistake in this kind of an approach, as long as what you envisioned for your product is coming out correct, and it is being used, and it is being validated correctly.
Right.
See like a huge mistake here, especially in that early hustle stage. That's all right. Like if you were to just close your eyes and improve one thing on your product, what would it be? If the answer is design, I'd say invest in it. If the answer from your point is engineering, I'd say invest over there. Right? Like what is that completely non-negotiable thing as of today?
Right. Got it. Makes sense.
So just to add to what he said, be very clear in terms of what your measure of success is, right? So I think one of the things that, and especially it happens with design, is, this won't work. This doesn't work. This is not working, right? Opinion versus fact ka separation is very, very important, right? And to take Arun's point further, right? You really need to understand what is that KPI from a business perspective that you're gunning for right now, right? Will changing design help that? Right? For example, if you're trying to do a click-through rate of something, right, on a page, I'm just giving a very crude example, but if there's a particular page that you have and you're trying to improve the click-through rate, will design help you get it from say 9% to 10% to 11%, right? Then yes, invest in design. So you need to figure out what the problem is. It's like if your engineering is right, and if the page is loading within the load time, and it's loading on all the devices, and if technology or if rendering is not the issue, then yes, then design is the issue. Then you need to figure out with a designer that, hey, listen, how do I make this go up? So you need to, see, design is just like any other aspect of business that helps you make money or succeed or grow, right? It's not, I mean, so that one thing, like, what Aditi said like a couple of times, right? Your design is not removed from business value or business success. So understand what your KPI is right now, and will changing something in design make an impact of that? Otherwise, don't change it. That means things are working. Maybe you need to focus on something else.
Correct.
Right?
That makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
Yeah. If you're at your growth stage, especially at your growth stage, because you don't have surplus funds and all this, what you said, right? I'm pretty sure you're, living on water right now, but the way you want to spend your money is very, it should only be focused on. And if your designer is telling you otherwise, fire the guy, because then that means the designer is not thinking about your business success. They're only thinking about design, like, they're only thinking about UI, UX or whatever, in a silo, and not in terms of how it collectively comes together for your business KPI. So write your business KPI, like that's what I would say. Write your business KPIs on the wall, like really big, that these are the 3 things that I'm chasing, and you can't be chasing more than 3 at any point in time, especially at this, growth stage. What will make these things go up?
Right. Makes sense. And that's a very good point. Just a small little follow up there. So we've just started launching our initial products phase by phase, just starting this month, in fact. And so far we were sort of in a pre-launch stage, right? And this perfection versus get the product ready challenge has been manifesting, within our organization real time. So here my point is that what are some of the KPIs that pre-launch companies could use while building their MVP? Because you don't have any sort of external validation at that stage. So apart from say beta testing or user testing or doing surveys, is there anything else that we could potentially use at those early stages to build those KPIs independent of the users, so to say?
I didn't understand, to be honest.
So basically, let's say if a completely new company, a new startup is building a solution from scratch without having any external customers. So I'm building a website completely from scratch, starting today. So what are when we work with designers and give them certain KPIs, again, design metrics. If I were to give my agency those KPIs in the early days, what would be some of the KPIs that I could give them, which I could also test out without having that initial customer base? You know what I mean? Like, what are some of the things to look out for in those early stage designers for a product? If
Okay,
that question makes sense.
so okay, I'm just gonna tell you something and then tell me if I've understood it. Because what
Sure.
it's sounding to me like is that, can I tell if the food is tasty without tasting it? Or
Potentially,
without
yes.
touching it or without eating it?
Yes,
Is
yes,
that the
potentially.
question?
Potentially, yes.
That's a tough one.
Yeah, it's a tough one. And it's as good as you shooting in the dark, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Like you would never know if you hit the target.
Got it.
You've
Makes
got
sense.
it,
But my question is, why would you want to do that? Like, why would you want to build something but not talk to somebody? Is this like a secret thing that you're worried that your idea will be lost or something like that? Are you coming from there?
It could
No,
be a
no, no.
health mode
Yeah.
thing, but I mean, again, just before you sort of answer Niklank's question, I think a great way to understand and try and test or validate for something where you don't have an actual user is to pay attention to the input. Knowing what you want your desired outcome to be, just pay attention.
Right.
To the input.
Makes
That's
sense.
what you can
Makes
do
sense. Yeah.
at that point. And
Right.
you can go ahead answer Niklank's question.
Yeah, no, got it. So Nikalank, exactly. I think what Aditi mentioned was exactly what I was looking for, in the sense that, you know, the KPIs without going to the stage of user testing. So in terms of knowing whether a designer is good or not is whether they're delivering your intended outcome, right? I think that's a good way to look at it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that answers
See,
my
the thing is, even if I don't have a customer, if I'm making something for someone else, I should be able to be the customer.
Exactly.
Yeah, fair enough. Fair enough. Makes sense.
Right?
Exactly.
So if I'm not able to think like my customer, then you're in the wrong business, bro.
Absolutely. Makes sense. Totally agreed. Yeah.
You can make that empathy start with you. And
Yeah, exactly. I mean,
yeah,
that's what I would.
Got it.
And the first thing also, I mean, the other thing I would also say actually focus on is that please, I mean, people, I almost always hear founders talking about that we need to validate this. Hey, have you thought about what if you need to mitigate this?
You need to mitigate this. Okay.
I
Right.
mean, it's just as necessary to know that this could fall on its face.
Yeah.
Right.
So I mean, have a good understanding of what your business KPIs are, but also have a good understanding of what it looks like when those KPIs are not being fulfilled. If you have a plan B for that, similarly, you should have a plan B for this too. You have to have a mitigation plan just as importantly as a validation plan.
Also,
Not having a mitigation plan, to my mind, is not being able to think it through. You don't
Right.
want to be there.
just to also add, you can always find an audience without finding them in your intended market, right? Like,
Right.
for example, you know, if I'm trying to, even if I'm in stealth mode and I'm trying to build something for India, I don't have to test it in India. And
True.
today
Yeah.
is, you know, the days are gone where I can't test it in Brazil, or I
Yep.
can't test it in US, or I can't test it somewhere else without anybody in India knowing. So this thing of ki, oh, I can't tell anybody or I'm alone in this, well, it's not true. It's a myth, right? So even if you're in stealth mode and you're trying to check something and you think you can't empathize, you know, with your user enough, or you might have a confirmation bias, or, you know, any of those things, the world is big, dude. You can find somebody, you know, somewhere, you know, a set of people who can help you validate this idea.
Right. Awesome. Yeah, this brilliant insights. Thank you so much, guys. I think my last question came out of the point where Nikalank asked, why did you think the design was shit? Right. So we were essentially playing the customer's role there. So yeah, that's how that looped. But anyways, perfect. And thank you so much. Amazing insights. I won't take any more of the time in the session. I think there are a few more questions.
Yeah, thank you, Utkarsh. Are there any other questions from from the audience? You can ask it now. You can unmute yourself and ask a question.
I think Tanay had a question and Arun answered that very beautifully in the chat itself. So thank you for that. But we are almost on time as well. We can definitely take more questions as Avishai mentioned. Avishai, I would need to drop off for another meeting. But definitely, and great conversation, everyone. Thank you so much for this.
Thanks, Aditi.